The Vancouver Canucks management has made it very clear that they are prioritizing not only this upcoming draft, but getting the youth within this team into the lineup, and it's starting to pick up again after moving on from Quinn Hughes and Kiefer Sherwood in key trades to prioritize the future. There is multiple reports surrounding Elias Pettersson and the Vancouver Canucks as they choose what direction to go in, with Elliotte Friedman speaking on what he's hearing around the league, and Chris Johnston revealing an Eastern Conference team that is circling back on the once franchise player that has left a sour taste in multiple fans' mouth. We're going to break down everything you need to know from multiple reports surrounding Elias Pettersson, what direction the Canucks are heading in, and so much more. But before we get into it, I just want to give a huge shout out to everyone watching. We're trying to reach our goal of 9,000 subscribers. So if you want to stay up to date on everything to do around the Canucks, it's completely free to hit that subscribe button. It would help us reach our goal. Now, with Pettersson, a once 100-point player within this Canucks organization, has not lived up to, of course, his giant contract extension that just kicked in. Now, with the Canucks forward, we've heard multiple topics around him. If the Canucks are willing to keep him, extending him through on season after season, or if the Canucks are looking to move on from the forward, and starting off with a report coming from Elliotte Friedman. Some calls on Pettersson, no doubt. Calls on Myers, Hronek, Garland, O'Connor, and Teddy Bluger. But seeing the Canucks are starting to get a lot more interest around this forward is starting to make things feel like it's inevitable at this point that we're going to get a clear answer coming from this management on their plans with Pettersson. Now, the big thing is the 11.6 million. I want to make it very clear. I'm a huge fan of Pettersson and his game. Has he lived up to this 11.6? Not even close yet, but he has not had a true player to play with in that top six since what? We had Kuzmenko and JT Miller. Now, the big thing with Pettersson, this is a big deal. This is not something you can bank on and hope it turns around. You need to be dead set on the direction of this team, and if you're okay with keeping Pettersson. Now, the big thing is, so far this season, 29 points in 41 games, missing some time with another injury. Pettersson is still very young. If you want a center to help grow a young core with, this is a guy that's going to feed you pucks, cover your butt on defense, and someone that you do not need to give up assets for, as he's still on this team. Now, moving farther into this, and we're going to break down an Eastern Conference team, including a name that Chris Johnston brought up surrounding the Canucks, but going farther into Pettersson and this entire Canucks team, they have struggled mightily. The Vancouver Canucks, since December 1st, have 9 assists from their current centers. This list includes David Kemp, Max Sasson, Atu Ratu, and the big thing is they're just not producing. And when looking at other teams, 49 points from their centers when playing the Canucks. Now, the big thing is, once again, Pettersson is having a down year once again, but this entire Canucks team is as well. We know Jake DeBrusk with 1 5-on-5 goal so far this season. I believe Brock Boeser has a 1 goal over his last 23. The offense in Vancouver has not been once what it is, and of course, with the personnel, this is going to be a huge reason. Now, David Pagnotta also spoke. I think the overall preference, unless you're blown out of the water, is to move them to the east. Now, if the Canucks move them within conference, this could bite them in the butt. This is the team that wants to get competitive in a 2 to 3 year window with this rebuild. We've seen the San Jose Sharks kind of do the same thing that worked out, and the Canucks are banking on a lot, but we know this ownership is not going to let them kind of make this ride out for 6, 7, 8 years. Now, the big thing is, if they move him out east, you don't have to worry about a playoff matchup against Pettersson if and when he returns the form, unless you face them in the finals. So moving him out east is going to be the biggest thing with the Canucks, and I think a lot of Eastern Conference teams know this, and this goes into a new article coming out by Sportsnet revealing a lot around the league. The NHL trade market is heating up. They speak on Pettersson, Panarin, and everything in between from multiple insiders, including Chris Johnston. Now, Chris Johnston goes out to say, Vancouver couldn't be more open for business. I just think there are still going to be teams out there that are at least intrigued by his skill set, But what I'm wondering is he can get back. Now, once again, looking at Pettersson, what we used to have, a Selke candidate center, a number 1C, which he still is, and 102 points, followed by an 89-point season with 34 goals. I do, once again, want to make it very clear, I think Pettersson still has this in him. It's just a matter of getting him an actual teammate other than someone like a struggling Jake DeBrusk or a struggling Boeser, or even a Vander Kane. We've seen the magic with Kuzmenko, with JT Miller. You need another play driver on that line, and I don't think the Canucks have that at the very moment. Maybe this means going out to trade for Kuzmenko, who I believe has been scratched a couple times for the LA Kings, who have also been interested in a Vander Kane. So if you can do a one-for-one swap, do that in a heartbeat. But with the Canucks, and with this, Chris Johnston goes even farther. If the Hurricanes re-engage on Pettersson, maybe we're talking about those two being a part of the same deal. Obviously, it would take a little more from Carolina and to make that happen. Now, once again, looking at this, Chris Johnston says that a lot of teams are intrigued. They want to know if he can get back to this. Going to Elliotte Friedman, we can see from David Pagnotta, I think the overall preference, unless you're blown in the water, is to move him east. We see Elliotte Friedman, some calls on Pettersson. This is a team that's actively listening to offers on everyone. Do I like that? Yes, I do. But at the end of the day, you need to keep some veterans on this roster. We've seen Adam Foote not be afraid to call them out about the culture problem. I think you do need to cut ends with a couple of guys, and it's going to suck. Kiefer Sherwood, it sucked to see him go. Quinn Hughes was even bigger of a bummer, seeing him without this organization. And this is where Chris Johnston spoke about Kotkaniemi from the Carolina Hurricanes, a forward that is also struggling, but someone with half or almost a quarter of the cap hit. Now with Kotkaniemi, you still get 4 years left. If this is a one-for-one deal, hang up the phone immediately. But Carolina does have some draft capital. The big thing with Carolina having Dallas's pick this year, who wants to be a contender, we can see having their own two firsts in 2028. This is a team that does have capital and have made it very clear to the NHL that they actively want to get a player with term. Once again, Pettersson has that. We've seen them go out to try to make those moves. They traded for Mikko Rantanen, hoping he would extend with the franchise. This did not work. He flipped him immediately. They are looking for players that they can keep in their organization for an extended period of time, and that lines up perfectly with Pettersson's contract. But once again, this is a team that has the assets. They have the cap. We can see Carolina right now with $17 million in current cap space. Going into deadline, $35 million, you can move off Pettersson's entire contract without having to retain or take back a lot of bad contracts. Of course, Kotkaniemi might not be the best, but at the end of the day, Canucks fans, I think the general consensus is you need to figure something out. You can't just continuously wishy-washy with Pettersson. We're taking calls. We're not taking calls. He might be back. Now he's not. This is a team that needs to figure it out. And listen, call me out in the comments if you want. I think moving him would be a terrible idea at this point. And hear me out. With Pettersson, there's a lot to like, a lot to dislike with this game. But moving the forward in the midst of having not a career year once again, his value couldn't be lower. And you're also handicapping your sense of going into next year. Say you draft Gavin McKenna. Who is he going to play with in this organization? Do you re-sign David Kampf to be a 1C? Are you fine with playing multiple rookies on the top line that's going to get shelled and not grow together with Braden Coots and McKenna? But I think keeping Pettersson at the end of the day is the smartest thing. But fans, what is your thoughts on this? What is your thoughts on Chris Johnston speaking on the Carolina Hurricanes? What is your thoughts on Elliotte Friedman saying they're getting calls on Pettersson? Let me know all your thoughts on this down below, because it's going to be a very hectic couple of weeks going into the Olympic freeze and of course trade deadline immediately after. But let me know your thoughts in that episode, and that'll be it for this. I hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe. We're trying to hit 9,000. I've been your host, Mark. Bye, and take care, Canucks fans.